All right, guys, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Homefront Podcast. This is episode 39. If you guys do want to work with Brooke and myself, you can book a call down below. We go over any buy or sells that you might want to accomplish in your real estate goals. And you get to know us a little bit better and see if we're a good fit for you. So yeah, book in the first link down in the description below. You pick a time that works for you. It's absolutely free and it's just over Zoom. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, we got a ton to talk about today. Inflation came in. There's a lot of stuff on immigration and everything and above. So we are going to start off with Brooke. She's going to hit us up with the inflation numbers.
When I rely on Cortez to tell me like the headlines a lot, or I just watch our own stories on Instagram.
Yeah.
No, just joking. But a lot of the headlines, as they come out, Cortez like gets a ping notification that there's like a new headline. So usually I'm a little bit behind Cortez. I like to be on top of them as well. But when you told me inflation went up, I'm like, that's interesting because I don't see any posts about it. So inflation was like every time inflation changed, everybody on Instagram and everywhere was talking about it. Yeah. And now it's like people are just over it. It's like, ugh, whatever. Inflation went up.
But I also feel like a lot of realtors are like struggling, so they don't want to post that there's bad news too.
Maybe. Is that maybe why? Because
we give it all.
Yeah. But I'm like, interesting. I didn't see any posts about it. And usually it's like anytime there's an inflation reading, it's like all my Instagram is flooded with. Yeah, just the same information. No context. Just
probably the next thing to flood will be when there's a rate cut.
Yeah. Predictable. Okay, well, inflation did go up, guys. Dun, dun. So December Canadian headline CPI rose to 3.4%. So the increase in headline price growth to 3.4% in December from 3.1% in November matched expectations after surprising on the upside in November on a surge in travel tour prices. Interesting. The rise in headline inflation in December was driven by a rise in energy inflation, food CPI. So missing some grammar in there. Food CPI growth held flat on a year-over-year basis from the 5% reading in November, which is still high.
Yeah.
Remember we did that calculation. If everything you buy rose at 5% times however many times you shop, how much more you're spending in a year.
Yeah.
Crazy. Although this uptick was in line with expectations on Bay Street, several measures of core inflation, which strip out volatile movements in the CPI, raised eyebrows among financial analysts. The Bank of Canada preferred measures rose at an average annual rate of 3.65% from 3.55% in November. Analysts were expecting a reading of 3.35%. So analysts thought that it was going down and it actually went up.
Yeah, that was on the CPI core. So core, remember, it strips out food volatility and energy. So the more volatile stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, CPI went up. So the whole basket. And then when you strip out the volatile stuff such as food and energy, it also went up.
Yeah.
So it's just showing that inflation is sticky.
Mm-hmm. So they do both of these readings because sometimes due to seasonal changes or just other things like gas can just surge up really high and then come right back down. So that's why they also read core inflation, which takes out things that can change so quickly just to see where we're at with core inflation, but then everything also put together. So everything went up, even when you take out the items that change rapidly.
Yeah.
And they expected it to go down. RBC expects the Bank of Canada to tread cautiously and watch the data carefully, but for further slowing inflation to allow a pivot to interest rate cuts around mid-year. Students and new graduates.
Oh, this is for that's topic 2.
That's a topic 2, so I don't continue reading. That's interesting. So, you know what? I was talking to a mortgage broker today at the bank, and he said any realtor that expects the spring market to be crazy is out to lunch because with inflation having gone up again, the Bank of Canada isn't going to put fuel on the fire. And lower interest rates, because the whole reason do lower or raise interest rates is to combat inflation or drive the economy if inflation is low. So I don't expect a rate cut at their next announcement. Maybe not even the one after that. They're going to be careful.
Yeah, they're going to be careful. And again, prediction's a shitty game, but yeah, like I said from the beginning, I was like, I don't think there's any chance we're going to get a rate cut in the spring. maybe we'll get one in the summer at 25 basis points because that's when traditionally the market slows down.
Yeah.
So you kind of have people away and everything like that. Because the last thing you want is the real estate market to do what it did last year.
Yeah.
Which was reaccelerate offer dates, all those things. And it's funny because I saw this guy on Twitter and he was like, oh, there was a house in Oshawa, had 22 offers. And he's like, the real estate market's back. And I'm like, real estate markets are, you can't just like blanket statement them in Canada. You can't just say because one house in Oshawa that was underpriced got 22 offers.
Yeah.
The real estate market's back. Like it's just, it's an insane thing to say.
Yeah.
So I think that the spring will be a tell on the real estate market. Again, I still think it's slow. Like you and I are boots on the ground doing this every single day. And we're having conversations with our sellers and buyers every day. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, we have so much in the pipeline, but getting it across the finish line seems to be really hard right now.
Yeah. There's always, there's always something, right? Buyers expect, you know, the great deal. They think every seller that's on the market is going to take a low ball where, you know, if you look at the percentage of people that bought in the peak on a variable rate mortgage and are quote unquote desperate to sell, the percentage is low. There's
So
not,
low.
So everyone's like, oh, desperate sellers. But there is a ton, especially in our markets with the older generations and Oakville especially, like they're not affected by the rates. There's not a crazy ton of desperate sellers that I see that, you know, you usually start with an offer lower, you try to negotiate, but sellers are holding strong. Like the list price to sale price ratio isn't that far apart. Maybe after a couple decreases, depending on where you start at, some sellers, you know, are still wanting those high numbers. So I agree with you, yes, but it is, in my opinion, what I'm seeing, like, you know, I had one sell in a week, then I had another one sell in 3 weeks, and then buyers, you know, going out to showings, but not in a crazy rush. So in my eyes, it's like I have a balance right now with, you know, I have a listing on the market that isn't really selling or getting showings, but we are kind of high price. So a specific niche buyer is going to buy a house at this price point. But then another one, you know, just sold pretty quickly.
Yeah. We got spoiled for way too long.
Yeah.
So like when you have to adjust expectations, not just for your seller, but for yourself, because you're like, oh my God, now I'm holding this listing for 30 days as opposed to it would be like, you know, what would you be 10 days or something like that? And now you're, you know, triple the time.
But
I know 10 to 30, but that's balance. That's normal.
In 2019 or was it 2018, I sold my parents' house and average like 90 days on market was normal. If you saw 90, the buyer isn't thinking that they're going to lowball you like crazy. Yes, they try to negotiate, but 90 days was a normal thing to see. And now it's just not the norm anymore. So somebody will assume, oh, 90 days on market, let's go in 200,000 under. But it's, you know, it doesn't mean that they're a desperate seller. Maybe you have to switch a couple things up in the listing to get more eyes on it. But
even a price decrease, right? Those are coming down the pipeline too, as opposed to you'd never have to drop you'd price it low in the peak times. But yeah, things are changing. I think even rent is up for sure, but I'm finding that even the lease inventory that I have is taking longer. I'm getting less showings.
Yes. My leases are taking way longer than usual. However, it depends on how it looks inside. A lot of times, like the good ones tend to move. And if it's in a good location, they tend to move. But yeah, like a couple condos that I have up for lease, not
moving. I got something in Oakville, like pretty prime location, like Trafalgar and Dundas. Like, you know, it's not downtown Oakville, but you know, there's a lot of rentals up there, and we've had one showing in a week. And then even I'm helping someone close to me in Toronto look, just more in like the area that I live in. And the listing agents or the leasing listing agent, whatever you want to call it, actually called me for feedback. And, you know, we're talking now going back and forth. And, you know, before something in Toronto, you'd be lucky to even get into it. So it kind of is showing like a little bit of change. Do you
remember when there were bidding wars on leases?
Unbelievable. People would hold offers on leases, offer dates on leases.
Yeah, you just got to think, where is everybody?
Yeah.
And what are they doing?
They all moved to Calgary.
Hibernating.
They all moved to Calgary.
It is freezing. Can we talk about how cold it is right now?
Outside here or in Calgary?
Yeah, the colder it is, the more the market slows down. That's actually a real thing.
Be a good study, eh?
It is a real thing.
Well, Calgary, so it was minus 40. Like that is
-40 in Calgary.
Insane. Should we talk about electric cars in the cold?
Oh, yeah. I've been seeing a lot of articles on. So Cortez drives a Tesla.
Yeah, so no Tesla bug can get mad at me for the facts I'm about to spit. But
Do you still love your Tesla?
yeah, it's a great car. It's not made for very cold conditions. So like Canada has this idea that they're gonna make every car that's for sale be electric by 2030. The problem is electric cars don't do well in the cold, and one of the reasons is combustion cars, so gas cars, the heat up through the engine heats up the interior of the car.
Yeah.
But the battery power, it has to use the battery. Obviously, there's no heat that can help from the engine because it's a battery.
Yeah.
So that has to heat up the cabin. But also the battery has to work a lot harder when it gets colder. So you lose about 25 to 30% of your actual battery when it gets cold. Like when I say cold, I mean like below zero. So the battery's pretty good where we are in Toronto right now because we've actually had quite a mild winter. But right now we're finally hitting the negatives, and you start noticing it. I'm like, I got to charge it more.
My sister also drives a Tesla and regrets it. So she's like, every single day there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, she's had some bad luck.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had anything wrong with it. The only thing is the battery, really. In the wintertime, I noticed that the range is just a bit less. But anyways, I guess the big point of this is that if we try to do this, there's not enough charging stations for everyone to go constantly charging in the winter. And like if you live in like rural Saskatchewan as an example, like how are you going to get from point A to B if you have a far drive with a car that is electric? And unless the technology gets a lot better between now and 2030.
The technology is going to have to get better. If their plan is to have every car electric by 2035, obviously the infrastructure that we currently have to support electric cars is just obviously not enough. So they would have had to take that into account.
Yeah.
Huh.
Even when you go, like if you're at a supercharger and you're totally dead, like you're close to zero in your battery, it would probably take you about half an hour to get you back up. So like you need to think about like every car going to the supercharger, and this is just for Teslas, and waiting half an hour. Like how much longer is that lineup versus the gas?
Yeah.
It's,
Well, we're 11 years away. Look at how much can happen in 11 years.
No, we're only 2024. Isn't it 2030 they're trying to do?
Oh, I thought it was 2035.
Oh, maybe. Well, we'll try and correct that, but not too far away.
Yeah, interesting.
We'll see how that goes.
You look cool driving it though.
Yeah, you look good. It does drive really well. It's just, the battery in the cold. I feel like these cars are made for warmer climates.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next topic. Students and new graduates are bearing the brunt of the labor market downturn. So the magnitude and pace of Canada's rising unemployment rate are consistent with trends observed during past recessions. Unlike prior recessions, though, the increase to date has come within a surge in layoffs. It's rather taking more time to absorb newly available workers as the population grows rapidly. Roughly half of the 0.8% increase in the unemployment rate since April has come from job searches for students and new graduates who were previously in the labor force. Longer job searches for students and new graduates have been a larger factor behind a higher unemployment rate in Canada to date than layoffs or new arrivals from abroad. So a lot of the unemployment is coming from students and new arrivals, which is interesting, right? Then this goes back to my thesis of how Canada is not an attractive country to come to, even for a diploma or even for new work, right? You're coming here, now you can't even get a job. First you can't get a house, now you can't get a job. So half of the unemployment that we're seeing is from newcomers. So it's only a matter of time, and like people are like, oh, you might be spreading propaganda. Like even there was an Indian news station that I posted about saying how Indian students or Indian residents aren't coming to Canada anymore. They're seeing it as an unattractive place to come.
Wow.
So the tides are turning.
Because they listen to our podcast.
I know. We actually do have Indian listeners.
A lot of them. I know we do.
It's cool.
Well, it's just good to know the reality of things, right? And these are just statistics, right? Like how many people they talk to and how many people are on the other end that say like, no, this has been the best decision I've ever made. Like Canada, it's crazy because everyone talks about how bad, but would I want to move out of Canada? No. Like, no. Really? Like, would I move to the States? Like maybe a warmer climate, but no. Like I'd stay in Canada. I like a lot of things to do with Canada. I like my free healthcare. Like I just very much feel safe in my community, and not to say other countries are more or less dangerous. I'm sure there's some on both ends. There's beautiful spots. Like I would stay here, right? And a lot of people say it's so cold and there's so much wrong with it. Like I should just move. But realistically, wherever you go, is there, can you just pick up and go somewhere and get a job easier? And just, is everything just so much better? Or is it just a matter of, oh, the grass could be greener over there? And is it better to stay in India? That's
Well,
another question.
So I was talking to someone in the rental that I have in Oakville there, and him and his wife are from India. And I was just like, just out of curiosity, like, where are you guys going? And they're like, oh, we're going back to the States. They're like, it was the biggest mistake coming here. They're like, we can rent the same place that we're renting here at way less of a cost. And they were like, everything, like the groceries are cheaper.
Yeah.
Car insurance, cell phone bills, all these things are cheaper.
Yeah.
And then someone DM'd us on Instagram saying that they're also from India and like they have friends back home. And since he left about 10 years ago, India has gotten a lot better in terms of opportunity, the investments that the government's making in jobs and productivity and even their GDP. So it was just interesting to see, like, you can read headlines, you can read statistics like you just said, but talking to real people kind of helps you weed through
it does
some of the noise.
It totally does, because, and that's the scary thing about this world, is that depending on what news channel or what outlet that you're on, you could read a headline, and if you take that for like stark fact truth, you're going to contradict yourself, because there's going to be another article that says very much the contrary. Look at the war. There are very much two opinions that very much contradict. And if you're just reading one side and just taking everything as the utmost like truth, then, we really don't know everything down to a T. It's just statistics.
For sure. Even look at, like you just said, Canadian real estate. How much of it is fueled by headlines?
Yeah.
And FOMO.
Exactly.
And everything of the above. Like, even, I don't know, you look at all the house fires now.
Yeah.
You look at interest rates. You look at these, now there's a headline that interest rates might rise again, right?
Yeah.
So now you have someone who's maybe a first-time home buyer thinking, I'm not going to go into the market now. Like, this is so crazy over my head, sort of thing. So,
and that's why I think, like, real estate, it does have to be very subjective, even when you're buying an investment, because not like everybody else aside, headlines aside, you look at, your own personal pocket and timelines and what's going on in your life. And just, there's so many other variables that are subjective, and everybody's like, oh, now's a good time to buy an investment. From reading the news articles and outlets, right? But it has to be way more subjective on your personal, how you are in your job, and if you see growth, if you see yourself moving. Like, there's so many things that can make it a better time to invest. You're independent of what the TV is saying.
That's why I think we provide so much value with that spreadsheet, and we book calls with people and we go over the numbers, because you have to be analytical in your decision. Like, you have to know. There's no surprises.
Yeah.
We go over everything for you, because the numbers don't lie. Basically, it is what it is. Like, this is how much cash flow you're going to make. This is what happens if the rates do drop here. This is what happens if the rate go up. This is why you should take a fix now. Just going over different analytical kind of things to look at for yourself. And then, like you said, time in the market, how long you plan on staying here.
Yeah.
Well, I want to sell it for $300,000 in 2 years.
Right.
Like my cousin did in 2015. Yeah. That's not going to happen.
I had a meeting today, and it was about, should he sell his townhouse that's in Hamilton? Okay. He bought it it's not up crazy from when he bought it, and his tenants are moving out. So what I said is, he's not going to make a ton of profit right now if he sells it. Okay. But if you look at, let's look at if you hold it in the next year, you're going to be $1,000 negative on rent. Okay, that's $12,000. Do we expect it to go up $12,000 or more? Yes, maybe no, yet maybe yes. However, my advice to him was, okay, regardless of how much profit you're going to make, do not sell this place if you're just going to put the money in the bank and then just carry on. Things could go either way.
Yeah.
However, I can pivot you, because this townhouse that's a single family residence isn't going to go as high as, for instance, a duplex on the Hamilton Mountain versus Stony Creek. That's going to have a higher ceiling. It's not a townhouse anymore, and it has 2 rents, and it'll cover your mortgage while having so much room to grow. So we're going to get in at the same price as what he'd likely sell that townhouse for. So instead of just selling, or, I need to hold on because I want to see more profit, well, let's just pivot your money to something else that has more growing room.
Yeah.
So instead of selling, instead of holding on until we see more profit, no, move the money and put it in something that has an even higher ceiling, right?
Yeah.
So if you buy and sell in the same market, it becomes relative. If I buy in a low market and also sell in a low market versus buy in a high market, sell in a high market, it's the exact same profit at the end if you're looking at a decrease in a percentage.
Very true.
Right? So I don't even like taking the chance, and I take risks, but I don't like taking a chance of buying and selling in two different, like within 3 months of each other, because the market can change so drastically.
Yeah.
Some people can get lucky, right? You sell and then things go down and then you buy, right?
Sold
but
in March, you bought in June, right?
Right. But it could go the other way. And so I like people to stay relative. So that means you don't have to hold on to your property that's maybe bleeding money. But if everything else, as well as that property that you're thinking about selling, is also down, we can find you something else to pivot to. And then obviously costs associated with selling and buying, like it's not a crazy lot if the future of the new place that you're pivoting to has, that much more projected future value.
Yeah.
So there's other things that you can do, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to profit on this, and I like put so much time into this and I don't want to sell it. It's like,
yeah,
well, you don't have to see profit on this. Move your money. Let's move it while things are relative.
I think a good thing to say to that is just, should I sell my asset? The question you ask yourself is there a better place to put the money?
Yeah. Don't put it in your pocket.
Yeah. If there's a better place to put the money, yeah, of course. Like if you just gave them another option, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being $1,000 negative, you can break even in this duplex, and then you can actually probably be cash flow positive in a couple of years once rates come down.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if he did hold on to it, I said, okay, it's not the worst idea. If you have nothing else to pivot your money to, then yeah, no, I'm not selling it, because yes, you're going to be 12,000 negative for the year, but a lot of that is paying down your principal, and we are in a low market, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not going to buy something else selling that investment, then no, don't sell it. Yeah. Literally, that was my advice to him, even though he's negative, because I do think 12,000 on an $800,000 townhouse, that's a very small percentage, and I do expect it to go up more than, what would that be even? That would be like not even 2%. Yeah. That's 1.5% in a year. So really.
Yeah, he should technically beat it. But,
and that's why there's so many
but sometimes
different
1,000,
options.
like for you and I to increase our income $1,000 a month, if we had to cover something, it'd be like, let's just do a lease. Mm-hmm. Let's do 12 leases. Some people can't, right? Some people are.
Well, yeah, if you're bleeding, but that's why it's like, okay, you can't carry it. Okay, so now the only option is to sell. But do not sell and just take a payday.
Like, yeah.
No. We're also going to buy in the same market, making it relative, but we're going to make it so that you're not negative, if that's, the problem for you.
All right, cool. Topic 3.
You want
to read topic 3?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
You don't have to read it all. There's a lot of info, but it's there's some good numbers there. Yeah, this was a good one.
The last one was like weird grammar. People are like, what is this girl saying? Canada stuck in, my dad emailed me this. Canada stuck in population trap, needs to reduce immigration, bank economists say. From the Globe and Mail, Canada is caught in a population trap and needs to rein in immigration significantly to escape it, according to a Monday report from National Bank. In the report, economists say staggering population growth is stretching the country's capacity to absorb new arrivals. They add that the main example of this strain is the housing market, where construction has lagged behind demand from newcomers. Economists argue that annual population growth should not exceed 300,000 to 500,000. That's a pretty broad range, but okay. Yeah. So it shouldn't exceed 500,000.
Yeah.
They say 300 to 500.
I would say 300, but okay. I think, go on. I'll give you the idea of what I think that's true.
That would be a dramatic reduction from current levels over the 12 months to October 1st.
So over the 12 months, so since October 1st of 2022 to 2023,
Canada's population rose by 1.25 million, the quickest pace of growth since the late 1950s. Canadians link home affordability concerns to the influx of newcomers. The inflation report shows that rents are growing at historically strong rates, while housing prices remain elevated despite a lull in activity. Okay, that's a relative thing to say, because yes, our house prices are elevated compared to, if you look at modern, urban little neighborhoods in the States, but like compared to what? Because we're down a lot. They're not elevated like they were. Elevated as a broad term, yes, our real estate in Canada is high. Well, in the GTA.
They're elevated to incomes, average price to income. Yeah.
So that's what they mean. Mm-hmm. Okay, last, in their report, the National Bank economists say a population trap is a situation in which living standards are unable to improve because the population is growing so quickly that all savings are needed to maintain the capital to labor ratio. Capital includes a variety of things such as property, equipment, and software that are used for the productions of goods and services.
Yeah. So this has been interesting, right? Because I remember even when we started talking about immigration potentially being too high, we got a lot of like hateful comments.
Yeah.
Such as you guys are white privileged and all this stuff. And again, it's not a conversation of like us versus them. It's a conversation of we don't have the infrastructure available here to create enough jobs. Like look at the newcomers coming, the students and people coming to this country. They can't even get a job right now. They're half of the unemployment rate right now. So it doesn't make sense. Housing, same problem. Rents are high. There's not enough homes for people to have. So there's a lot of problems with letting in this many people into the country. And 61% of Canadians think that immigration needs to come down. Now, Pierre Poilievre came out and said, if he was to be in power, what he would do, he would link the number of people coming to the country to the number of homes being built. So roughly there's about 240,000 homes being built in Canada per year, and about 1.8 people occupy those homes. So yeah, you're looking between 300 and 500,000 people to come to the country per year if we can keep up that rate. The problem is when you let 1.2 million in and you're building 240,000 homes, you imagine a funnel. There's a cartoon we put out. There's a funnel. There's all these people in the funnel and there's one house. Right. And it shows Canada's housing problem is that there's way too many people and everyone needs a roof over their head. And here we are in this housing crisis.
Right. So if there's 40 million people in Canada, are we saying that there's not 40 million houses?
There's 40 million houses in Canada?
Well, if there's 40 million people.
Well, it's a tough conversation because then you have.
I would love to know like how many
houses are in
houses,
Canada.
including condo units, including townhouses, like how many?
How many rentals?
Legit. Well, yeah. Just like how many houses are in Canada? I feel like there's more than 40 million.
I don't think so because then everyone would have a home.
Can we fact check?
You can check that, yeah.
Fact check. I wonder if Google will say we're going to Siri it right now, guys.
Yeah, I really doubt that.
Oh, my phone.
I'd be surprised.
Let's fact check it. How many houses are in Canada? Okay, wait. I can't say houses. How many residential dwellings are in Canada?
0.
Total residential dwellings reached 16.4 million units. Whoa.
And that's not even close.
What?
Yeah, because I mean, you got to think like, if everyone could buy a house, then we wouldn't have a housing crisis.
Well, yeah, because more than one person lives in a house, but
yeah.
Okay, got it. So what is
I don't
considered...
own a home, you own a home, your dog would own a home.
Okay, Canada has the lowest housing stock per capita in the G7 with 440 dwellings per 1,000 residents compared to the G7 average of 480 dwellings per 1,000 residents.
Yeah.
So we're 40 behind per 1,000 residents.
Yeah.
And if we say that 1.8 people live in a house, then that's...
I don't know the math.
Kind of on par, like 440, 1.8.
We're just way behind.
I guess so.
Even last year, right? You're looking at 240 units being built. Now they're even slowing down even more because the cost of capital is so high. So yeah, it's only going to get worse. So the only thing you can really do, which the Liberals are now on board with, because Sean Fraser, the housing minister, said he would consider doing the same thing, is slowing down the amount of people coming to the country.
Interesting.
Putting a cap more on students and non-permanent residents. Mm-hmm. That's what really inflated the number because we are having 500,000 people come in, but then when you add up students and non-permanent residents, you start to get to the 1.2 million, which we talked about here.
Right.
Before,
okay, that makes sense. So also, according to a Roy LePage survey, 11% of Canadians have more than one house.
Wow.
That's wild.
That is wild.
So 89% of people in Canada have 0 or 1 house. Well,
yeah, it's not too crazy, but
I actually, that's
again, it's going to be hyper local, right? Like condos in Toronto, over 50% of people that own them are investors.
Yeah.
So there's that too. Anyways, last topic here. Let's get on to it. So Canadian housing sales see worst year since the 2008 financial crisis. So despite an unexpected uptick in December, 2023 marked the worst year for Canadian home sales since the 2008 financial crisis. According to new data from Korea, 38,000 homes were sold across the country in December, an 8.7% increase from November. The actual not seasonally adjusted number of transactions was up 3.7% from December of 2002. While the year-end bump put an end to what had been 3 consecutive months of slipping sales, it doesn't mark a turning point for the market. The true test for the market will be the upcoming spring market that we'll see. It's most likely just some of the sellers and buyers that were holding on to unrealistic pricing expectations last fall finally coming together to get deals done before the year end. So yeah, if you think about how long it's been since the 2008 financial crisis, we haven't had that low of sales since then. So you need to think of like, if we are building over 200,000 homes per year consistently, plus the number of people coming to Canada as well, you have less transactions. So when we say sales, it means like, I bought a house from Brooke.
Yeah.
That's what it means, right? So you have almost the same amount of sales as the 2008 financial crisis with more people and more homes being built. So like, I'm of this thesis, and I wrote this in our newsletter, that a lot of boomers are staying put in their home because the delta to downsize, and we always talk about this, doesn't make sense. There's not enough. Once you do land transfer, you pay out real estate agents. It's like, okay, I'm just going to stay in my home.
Right.
A lot of them too are even wartime bungalows where it's like, I don't have a second story. I can live in all in one floor.
Yeah.
Plus then you have millennials and Gen Zs who can't even get into the housing market. So then you have this kind of push and pull here where, you know, you have people not selling and then people that can't buy. So that's why you just have the kind of the middle who are transacting. And that's why the numbers can be so low. Obviously, too, with high inflation and interest rates.
How many transactions were in 2023 as a whole?
I think it was like 450,000.
Okay. And then how many in 2021, let's say?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Like, how much of a difference is it? Fact checking.
Yeah, you can fact check that. But they are saying that
in Canada?
In Canada, yeah. I think it was 440 or something like that was 2023. In 2024, they are expecting a 10% increase. Activity will be strongest in the provinces such as Alberta. They do expect a rebound in Ontario, BC, and Nova Scotia.
Okay, so there was 667,000 sales in 2021.
In 2021. So we're in 2023, there was 440 something. So that's quite a decrease. It's over, it's probably 200,000 less homes traded hands, plus the new homes that got built as well, like completions too. So yeah, when uncertainty comes, people stop moving.
And then in the States, 6.12 million in 2021.
They do have 10 times the population.
Well, it's exactly 10 times.
It's exactly
That's
10
crazy.
times. Yeah.
667,000 compared to 6.12 million. Yeah. 10,
it is crazy.
10 times.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I was listening to this economist talk about, he was actually from, the US, and his best trade of his life was shorting the Canadian banks, I think in late 2010s or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about it, and he was like, I wanted to keep shorting Canadian real estate, but what I learned was that Canadian real estate is like the US stock market. So what he meant by that was like Microsoft, for example, has the same market cap as the whole TSX. Mm-hmm. So he was saying that Americans have so much wealth in their stock market that the government will never let it fail because it's just too much, like it would be too disastrous.
Right.
He's like, Canada's the same thing, but with their real estate. So if you look at Canada's GDP and you see how much it's connected to housing, if housing fails there or a crash happens, Canada's economy is in such turmoil that it would be so detrimental to their people. So that's what he was saying, which was interesting. So he stopped, obviously, the short on Canadian housing market because he's saying it's been so resilient. I'm not trying to say that's a bullish thing for Canada because anything can happen. Things can fail.
Because one of my mortgages is pretty high right now. And I'm like, hopefully
it comes down a little bit.
I did refinance it, everybody. So it's not like I bought really high. But
you pulled the money to put it there. But it is interesting, right? You have this. Because all things considered, it has been pretty resilient.
No, it has.
Like I thought we would see more of a decrease, but if we do if you saw a 50% correction in housing, like some people are calling for, like you would have so many layoffs at the bank. Mm-hmm. You would have so many mortgages in foreclosure. Like it would be a complete mess because we only have 6 big banks, right?
Yeah.
And then RBC just took over HSBC. So there's another, all that loan debt that's being taken on. So it is interesting to see that. Is that true? I don't know. But it's when you think of someone who's very smart, who makes big trades saying that.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, they don't have that much, like it's controlled by the price of money and people's incomes, the real estate market. Like if somebody starts, you know, if prices, new precedents get set for the streets because of really desperate sellers because of the interest rates, then things can continue to come down, right? It's like really dependent on rates and people's payments and whether or not they can afford it or not.
Even just people, like if investments come attractive elsewhere and people start putting, like, you can, as a Canadian, you can still buy the S&P 500. Like, you can still get exposure to the US market if you think that's a better trade, which some people have, right? Like, they'd rather max out their TFSA than invest in real estate. So you could see that trend going forward too.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a project right now that, that I have that is, investments, condos in Dubai. I'm like, I don't know. Should I like call all these people that are replying to this? Like, it's a good project. They're doing this whole like redevelopment in the south part of Dubai, and they're starting at 225,000 Canadian. Seems like a good deal, but I'm like, I don't know enough about anything. You don't know enough that about I don't feel comfortable like really selling it. But that project is on my table. I know the builders. I'm talking to them, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to help this, but I'm like, it's interesting. Like, selling real estate outside of Canada is like that a new thing because I guess it's done through a referral. But
if people start investing in other countries, like I know Hutch was saying that he sells stuff in Tulum all the time. So if you start seeing people taking capital from here and putting it somewhere else, then you never know, right? So anyways,
interesting.
We'll see where it goes, but it's going to be an interesting year. Like I said, I think the spring market's going to be a big tell of where we're going.
Yeah, it'll be good to follow it.
Yeah.
I still think that buy when rates are high. If like not a single family home, not your primary residence, like it has to be affordable. Don't overstretch yourself.
Yeah.
Don't get yourself into murky waters.
Purchase
but
price.
Buying an investment. Date the rate. Marry the price.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
If you need help going over numbers, we can go over it. And if
we have a spreadsheet.
We've had people go over the numbers and I think they've gotten overwhelmed with it and just said, this isn't for me, which is fine, right? Like, that's the whole point. We want
it's not, it's okay. Put it this way. I am very much, I cannot focus on a computer. Like, I have a very, very strong admin that's very good with the computer and all that good stuff. I hate that. I don't like technology. I don't know how to work my phone. I don't know how to open an app. I'm really bad at that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know my passwords to anything, stuff like that. So this spreadsheet, I can understand. I'm good at math, yes. But I mean, when I say I can understand, it means it's not like, oh my God, that looks like too much. I don't even want to try to pretend to sit here and learn it. It's like straightforward. It's like, here are your rents, here's your mortgage payment, here. Like, it's very straightforward where it won't overload. It's like, I don't want to, that looks too complicated. Yeah. Even if it is easy, it's easy.
The main parts are highlighted. It's very easy to go over. And again,
for ADHD, it's not like a panic.
It's not a panic. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No.
Cool. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. If you are on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We're growing there, which has been awesome. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I want to try and get out to more people who want longer form, and our short form stuff does the best. So if you want to catch us there, we're on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. If you do want to book a call, you can do so down below in the first link, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching.